being an entrepreneur is a 24/7 job. And when you're hiring, you need a partner that works as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. For one thing, there you could post a job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your business is the quality of the candidates. And with LinkedIn, of course, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses say using LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Today on The James Altucher Show.
Martin's technical expertise made him the perfect employee because he could chart the ship and fly the plane, and he knew all the things that made him capable of smuggling hundreds of millions, potentially over $1 billion worth of cocaine only in a couple of years.
As a matter of fact, that's what one of them told me, that, but listen, Manny, you're doing a great job and everything. Just don't forget that I have a long arm and I can reach across far away and touch you on the shoulder.
And a lot of people in the criminal world thought you were this criminal drug lord because your cover was never really broken.
Martin is convincing these people that his version of reality, that he is a smuggler, if you wholeheartedly believe that what you know to be true is true, it's much easier to convince other people of the same.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is The James Altucher Show.
This is a crazy story. I mean, Martin Suarez, he broke the record for the longest time spent continuously undercover. He was an FBI agent. He went deep undercover as basically this mafioso drug lord, and he was smuggling billions of dollars worth of drugs from the Colombian cartels. And I mean, even how the story starts off with a gun to his head, he'd been caught and figured out. It's riveting. It's real life. It's true. It's about what really goes on, under the covers, so to speak, in the world. The book is Inside the Cartel, a true crime tale of espionage, undercover operations, and a war against billionaire drug lords. It's written by Martin Suarez and also his co-author, Ian Frisch. Now, both Martin and Ian came on the podcast because Martin is suffering from ALS. I guarantee you, if you listen and pay attention, his story is worth it. But Ian sometimes chips in to kind of explain in a different way. But I urge you to pay attention to both of them. It kept me on the edge of my seat. So here they are, Inside the Cartel. You start off the book, a gun is to your head. You think you've been exposed, or somehow they figured out you were an FBI agent. The most notorious cartel in the world is trying to kill you. What's going through your head that moment? How did you escape the gun?
The way I escaped the gun is that during that hour that I had a gun pointed at my head, it gave me time to think of a plan to escape. Originally, at first I thought of running, but he was too close for me to do that, and not close enough for me to jump him. So I thought of him as being a professional because of that. So I had to opt for, you have a plan until you don't. And I had to opt for trying to get away from him as soon as he asked me to go to the door.
So then what? You're going towards the door, and all this is detailed in the book, but it sets this, it's kind of this pinnacle of your career. Like, and maybe Ian also, if you could chip in, like what happened? How did you survive to write this excellent book?
So I've been through a lot of hairy situations compared to this, not as critical, but almost. And at that point, but with the help of Ian, I was able to get this on the book. One example of the few that I went through that at the time I didn't think it was such a big deal. And,
well, okay, I want to stop Martin right there to say that, of course, he wouldn't think that a Sicario hired by the cartel coming to his house and trying to kill him wasn't that big of a deal. But you
I was just wondering that, yes.
You have to understand Martin's role as an undercover agent at this time in the context of this scene that we're talking about. This Sicario coming to his house, assigned to kill him, came at the tail end of a 6-year-long deep undercover operation. First, based out of Miami as a smuggler, and then on the second half of the operation as a money launderer based out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Now, in the world of cartels, drugs are important, right? But what's really important is the money. So as Martin gets deeper in the world of money laundering for some of the largest cartels in Colombia, that's where the danger really starts to creep close to his doorstep, as evidenced by this. Now, you may ask, how did they know? Well, at the end of this operation, the indictment was unsealed against all these high-level cartel members, over 50 in all. And the only person not listed on the indictment when it was unsealed was, quote, Manny, Martin's alter ego. So the cartel probably knew that Martin was either a member of law enforcement, whether FBI, DEA, whatever, or B, a criminal, but not completely honest with them. So they don't care. The cartel wants Martin dead. And that's
or he could be ratting on them.
Or he could be ratting on them. And that's the whole thing. But you have to understand that Martin is very well trained, as he will tell you. So patience was a virtue in this situation, and bravery too, when you have a gun pointed to your head. And one of the details that Martin told me when we wrote this scene was, and how he knew this wasn't random violence. It wasn't a random robbery, was because the hitman was whispering to himself, he has the same eyes, which means that he was given a picture of Martin and said, find this guy and kill him. But as they approached the door, as Martin was just saying, Martin was able to bring the hitman just close enough so he could turn, try to swipe his gun, and then wrestle the guy. And we won't spoil what happened next, but obviously Martin's sitting here with us now, and I was able to write this book with him. So,
and I like how that chapter closes. There was a shot fired. There was blood everywhere. On to the next chapter. Sorry, guys. We'll tell you about that later. Well, look. How did you also at that time, it probably still is the record of the longest undercover in the FBI, particularly with the cartels. Like, how did it all get started? How did you decide you wanted to do this? How did everything start?
So I left the Navy in 1987 to join the Bureau. And at that time, I was first head of the Navy and working with DEA and then my drug squad. And my supervisor came up to me and said, would you be able to bring a boat to the Bahamas, a fast boat, for an operation? They needed somebody just to take the boat there. And when I got there to the Bahamas, I felt like I was in my place. And I was hooked from that point on. And then by the circumstances, the way it happened, I was assigned to a long-term operation in backstopping, where I backstopped most of the undercover operations in the nation. And by default, I ended up joining those investigations as a undercover where there had been a principal or a primary agent, undercover agent, or a cameo. So after 13 years of doing that, I just looked back and I said, I worked my whole career undercover. The length, the tenure into that technique was more because of my job rather than direct assignments.
But I will say, James, to set the scene for why Martin was able to go undercover in 1988, war on drugs is in full swing. Federal government is like, hey, we're kind of losing the war on drugs. We need a new sort of way in. We need a way to best the cartels. And before Martin, there's only been one long-term deep undercover operation, and that was Donnie Brasco with the American Mafia in New York City. But just like Donnie Brasco, or Joe Pistone, his real name, Martin was the perfect agent at the perfect time with the perfect target, right? Martin is a native of Puerto Rico, native Spanish speaker, had some street smarts, high-level technical expertise coming out of the Navy. Perfect smuggler. You know, you throw a silk shirt on him, let him grow his mustache out, and, you know, he's a doper, right? And, you know, that sort of perfect timing, right place, right time, has really accelerated Martin's role as an undercover agent. But the FBI, systematically, from the high level, in a philosophical way, was extremely supportive of the covert technique at that time because they knew that there was no other way for them to really understand how the cartels operated. They really need someone on the inside. Now, what made Martin the perfect undercover from an FBI point of view also made him the perfect smuggler from a cartel point of view. And through the help of a source, a cooperating witness who introduced him to other cartel men, Martin's technical expertise made him the perfect employee because he could chart the ship and fly the plane, and he knew all the things that made him capable of smuggling hundreds of millions, potentially over $1 billion worth of cocaine only in a couple of years. So these cartel guys were probably short on good help at the time because they had such high volume. So for Martin to come on the scene, it was perfect for both sides, which is kind of ironic.
Who was that guy? There was people who were kind of helping the government too, right? Like, who's that guy? The movie American Made was about him. Tom Cruise played the guy. So there were other guys who were sort of informing, but they weren't necessarily FBI agents.
Yeah, there were civilians who were doing this type of thing. I think that was Barry Seal. He was a pilot, and he was contracted by the CIA and, you know, helped move cocaine within some of those types of operations. Whereas CIA is mostly kind of doing covert intelligence work. Martin's team was very dead set on, here are the core groups of people that we are targeting. Our goal is to indict them, is to implicate them in a crime using the covert technique so we can bring them into an American courtroom, which is a little bit different than the CIA. However, the similarities were, as Martin came to understand, and as he told me, we were really going after people versus drugs. We wanted to know things about them. We wanted the intelligence to carry us through this operation, which is why they didn't do simple street bust where you roll up to someone, hey, I'll get a kilo, and then you bust them. You know, Martin was actively smuggling for these people for months or years at a time so they could understand the inner workings and the hierarchy of the cartel itself, which then informed the next phase of the operation and the next one and the next one and the next one.
Take a quick break. If you like this episode, I'd really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. Email me at altucher@gmail.com and tell me why you subscribed. Thanks. So things have gotten really busy for me lately, and I've asked for it. Like, I'm doing all things I love doing and wanting to do, but I'm very busy and I have to be focused on every single thing. And some of these things that I do during the day, like basically, I'm helping run 3 different businesses, plus I'm doing 3 podcasts a week, and I have to read and prepare for each podcast. I'm writing a book. Those are just like my professional career things. And then I'm doing all sorts of other things. And I often have to switch from meeting to meeting to meeting, and my brain has to stay focused. And I don't want to take any stimulants that's going to get me like overhyped or overstimulated and not. I really want to function optimally. I don't think this is going to last forever. Well, I hope it doesn't last more than a month like this. But basically, I had to figure out what to do. And I really can't highly recommend enough Huel, Huel, and their black addition powder. It's like a complete meal. So you feel full, focused, and I feel more ready for the day. Like it actually works. So at less than $3 per meal, it's packed with 40 grams of plant-based protein and 27 essential vitamins and minerals, no added sugar, gluten-free, tastes great with flavors like salted caramel and chocolate. Plus, it keeps me full for hours. That's key. I don't want to be like hungry during all these meetings. And it's perfect for breakfast, lunch, or post-workout. And just when you thought Huel had everything covered, they just dropped a first of its kind super greens drink in a can. And it's called the Huel Daily Greens Ready to Drink. So you forget powders, forget those pills. This is your daily greens. No mixing, no mess, quick and convenient without compromising nutrients. Don't go for those compromising nutrients. It's sparkling and comes in flavors like blueberry, apple, peach, 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods, only 25 calories, 4 grams of fiber, 1 gram of sugar, made by dietitians. So try Huel with 15% off for new customers today using my code Altucher at Huel.com/Altucher. Fuel your best performance with Huel today. Being an entrepreneur is a 24/7 job. And when you're hiring, you need a partner that works as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. For one thing, there you could post a job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your business is the quality of the candidates. And with LinkedIn, of course, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses say using LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Being an entrepreneur is a 24/7 job. And when you're hiring, you need a partner that works as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. For one thing, there you could post a job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your business is the quality of the candidates. And with LinkedIn, of course, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses say using LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Obviously, you were doing something very moral. You were getting people who were bringing these drugs into society, corrupting our youth, endangering our youth and so on. And obviously the societal wreckage that happened from all these drugs. But did you ever feel like guilty because yes, you're doing a good thing, but at the same time, you're bringing all this cocaine into the U.S.?
Yes. So at that time, the drug work in the FBI was the number one violation. So we had a system in place where we seized everything we brought in. So not a gram could hit the streets. If we weren't sure of that, we couldn't do the operation.
But wouldn't that make you suspicious as if every drug you brought into the U.S. was seized? If you didn't have any successful deliveries, wouldn't they say, "Oh, this guy is not so good for us"?
All my deliveries were successful. I would hand it over, and then we would have a robust surveillance team investigations on them, and we would take them down away from me, removed at least by one person.
I see. So the
So
cartels would make their money. They would get the money from, but then, and maybe the first layer of dealers would sell the drugs, but then on the street level, maybe you would catch people or I don't know. It still seems like if the cartels had investigated, they would see that none of their drugs were getting to customers.
Well, here's the thing. This is what blew my mind about Martin's story. When I first started working with him, I asked the same thing. Well, if all the drugs get seized, why are they still hiring you? And Martin explained that the deception of working undercover isn't just character transformation. You are basically creating an alternate reality for the cartel in that Martin brings their drugs in, he packages them, he makes sure that the stateside distributors receive the drugs, but the entire federal law enforcement apparatus, like Martin said, allows the drugs to make it one step further. And as the drugs get one step further to another distributor, Martin is able to deflect blame from himself. He can say, I did my job. You still have to pay me for my role in this. It's that guy's fault. And this did work for many years. The cartel did get wise and they called everyone back to Colombia for a meeting with El Jefe, but Martin was able to not go to that meeting, which would have been pretty dangerous. But it's almost like, and I describe it in the book as this, it's like undercover work is like doing a magic trick for a spectator who doesn't know they're on a stage. And that is the entire sort of basis of Martin's undercover operations as a smuggler. He always made sure to deflect blame. And Martin can tell you how he did that on an interpersonal level. But for me, it was just having balls and going up to a cartel guy and say, I don't care. Not my fault. I did my job. Where's my money?
And
yeah,
I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I'd be too scared. Like if I was going to be called to a meeting with El Jefe, I would basically go to the FBI and say, I'm not doing this anymore. Protect my identity, protect my children and my wife, and I'm done. But you didn't do that.
yeah, because I felt that my legend or my alter ego created by a team of agents in the bureau was so solid that I didn't think I was in any danger whatsoever. And remember, I was dealing with the highest level of the cartels. So the Medellin cartel with the guy that I was working at Viejo, he was not the kind of violent guy at that level. There's a lot of movies, Narcos and whatnot, that show violence at the highest level, but most of the time it wasn't like that. They were violent, and that they could find you and reach across the ocean and touch you on the shoulder. As a matter of fact, that's what one of them told me that, but listen, Manny, you're doing a great job and everything. Just don't forget that I have a long arm and I can reach across far away and touch you on the shoulder. Like saying you have to answer for all this whatever. We were able to deflect the blame because these operations are so complex, even for the cartels, that many, and they do so many loads, they're always in trouble, losing merchandise and losing money. So where you can deflect and say, hey, that guy you sent me is all heated up. And I do that months before the operation. So we hit up somebody else, and then they, at the day of the delivery of the drugs, they get stopped by a trooper and they run away, never to be seen again in most cases. So they're not there at the meeting to defend themselves. So by default, they did it. If you don't go to the meeting, you did it. So I had a representative. If it had not been for my source, who was a Colombian pilot and way past, he it wouldn't have been very difficult to penetrate the way I did. He always vouched for me. Anytime there was a problem, he and his wife, who was also embedded with the cartel for a long time, they always backed me up, and they were such good negotiators. They kept me in the game.
And how did you know to trust them?
Well, we highly vetted them, and it's a process. And at some point at that level, based on that vetting, you have to have a certain level of trust, and not it won't work. And that's what the cartels do. They trust but verify, but they're never sure, and they have to take a risk initially with you, unless they won't get their loads across the ocean.
And so, you know, these cartels were kind of obviously popular in their own in Colombia, for instance. They were involved in charities, they put politicians in place. Like, did they control Colombia at the time?
Oh, yeah. And I really believe they still do. Through the money laundering, they buy everything and anything, mostly influence. But yeah, they control every life of a Colombian citizen at the time. And it was pretty overwhelming, the power that they had.
And now a lot of this in the 80s was during the time of Iran-Contra. Like, how much do you think? And I interviewed a guy who was a crack dealer from Compton, Rick Ross. I interviewed him almost 10 years ago. And his claim was is that he was put in jail for being a crack dealer, but ultimately all the crack he was dealing, the US was indirectly paying for. So how much was the US really involved on the other side of things as well?
Like on Savory acts or something like
Yeah.
that. So remember, at our level, the FBI, we have to indict these people. And if we conduct any unsavory acts while working undercover, we're rendered useless as a witness. So we have to, and they can impeach us just by saying that I brought this guy some girls during a meeting and he acted upon it. So I had a way to deal with that also. Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Did you say, "Oh, I don't want any girls"? Did you say you were gay? Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I could have used any of that, but I opted for bringing my own girl. Bring in my own girls who were also FBI agents.
That's smart.
Yeah. And they served as a second pair of eyes and ears. And so many times they worked as advertising that they warned me about certain things. Cameras back then, that was unusual in the rooms. They would observe the rest of the participants at a dinner or something and engage them in conversation. Like, for example, we had this one guy we couldn't identify. if we can identify our efforts are useless. So she engaged the guy in conversations about kids, how much he loves kids and this and that. He ended up pulling out his wallet to show her some pictures of his kids. And she was able to obtain the name of his license and a social security number also, because he happened to carry his card in his wallet. So that's how incredibly useful a partner you see is, because they just open up the possibilities for you. We have been trying to identify this guy for months. She got it in less than 10 minutes.
Wow. So do you ever get worried now that you're kind of out in the open? You know, some of these guys might be getting out of jail, or some people might have survived everything. Do you ever get worried now you might be tracked down and killed?
No, I think I am still under the same mentality that I was when I was undercover, and that I didn't see the threat until it was on me, and then I dealt with it. But yes, I kept track of all these guys. Many are dead. Many are just getting out of jail now after 20 years. A few of them have called me and said, hey, can we work together? And I tell them I'm retired already, but I do reference an agent that would be able to work with them.
But now they see your face on podcasts and stuff, they're gonna know you were the informant, you were the FBI agent.
Right. Right. So that's a risk I took, because I'm confronting my mortality as we speak. I
Yeah.
think I have a bigger battle with ALS than I would with any drug cartel boss.
Are there any hopeful cures to reverse ALS? Like, is there any research? I always feel like there's research, hey, we're about to reverse ALS, but then it never really comes true.
Right. So a lot of people outside of the U.S. believe highly on stem cell treatment, but my doctors, who have a bunch of them, they say it's all a hoax, and I believe them. But too many people come up to me and tell me that they feel a lot better, stronger after being infused with the stem cell treatment cell.
I wonder if that is, I wonder what the truth is. I wonder if stem cells help. What do they do? Inject the stem cells into your brain, or what does it do?
Yeah, the way I understand it is that it is placed infused near your spinal cord,
Mm.
and then it allows the cells to proliferate and replace the bad cells or the dead cell. Yeah.
And you don't think, your doctors don't think that is true though? Like, maybe the danger is, how do the cells know how to program themselves into spinal cord cells?
Yes, they use according to them, they use the basic stem cells, let's say from a baby or something, and then they use the stem cells that can adopt either the message that has to go to the spinal cord and treat the the nerves that are damaged.
So I want to obviously go back to the topics in the book, but when you were going undercover and you met Maria, the woman who became your wife, you would have to leave her for long periods of time to go undercover. I mean, how do you think both of you had to trust each other? She had to trust you that you weren't going to any cartel parties or whatever.
Right.
Like, how do you think the trust survived during all of this?
The trust is based on actually, Maria, my wife, she understood, she had been a product of the military life. Her parents were in the military. She grew up in Germany, and she had an open view of what it took to serve, and that her dad went to Vietnam 3 times. And she had that way of thinking that sacrifice for this great country is the right thing to do. And when I left Puerto Rico to go join the Navy, that's all I thought about. That's what my father taught me. And to be kind and to serve wherever I could. He gave me the example that he would wake me up on a Saturday to go and help an elder person build a bathroom or fix their house or something. He did that free of charge out of the kindness of his heart. And I learned to appreciate that once I was in the Navy and far away from him.
You kept on doing undercover work even after this. And a lot of people in the crime world, in the criminal world, thought you were this criminal drug lord because your cover was never really broken. Like you even mentioned you were undercover in you did a case in the art theft world. Well, what was that case all about?
So it was a case, without getting into the detail, I let the primary undercover case agent on that to tell his story. I was a camera guy, and that I commanded a lot of huge wealth in cocaine profits. So I was brought into the operation to lend credibility as a mafia guy for the primary agent. And we negotiated the purchase of the artwork from Europe. It was hidden in Europe, and we offered to buy these paintings to get them back, but they wanted what the paintings were worth. But nobody was going to pay $20 million for the art. So the FBI didn't have the budget for that. Even if they did, they wouldn't do something that stupid. So I offered them my own services, and some factions of that group that held the paintings agreed to make this swap art for cocaine. I told him in a meeting in Barcelona, listen, these paintings are worthless because they're stolen. What am I going to do with them? But I'll give you 20 kilos for them. And I walked away to the meeting, and they caught up with me down in the lobby of the hotel and said, we'll take the 20 kilos. And then that led to through my other investigation that led in part to discover where the paintings were.
And so basically, they had stolen this art, and it was worth $20 million. And you said, "Look, these paintings are worthless, but I'll pay you in cocaine," because they knew you as this cocaine smuggler and drug lord. And they agreed. And did you deliver the cocaine to them?
No, the older meetings in Barcelona and France led to a good surveillance effort where they were taken down before we were able to ever had to provide cocaine. But the purpose of, in my mind, the purpose of mentioning the cocaine was for to carry on the conversation to see where that would lead us in terms of gathering evidence and also gather more knowledge of the players. Behind the scenes, there were a lot of people that sent these guys to negotiate with us. So, yeah.
Why would anyone steal famous art? Because once you steal famous art, everybody knows it's stolen, so you could never sell it.
Right. So they believed that they had a market for it. And when I indirectly opened an outlet for them, I told them that I had a very weird drug lord that would have this in his hacienda and boast about it to his fellow drug lords. And they bought that. There were a lot more details, but that in a nutshell was my take on it. So it took another direction, but it worked out very well.
This is what I've been waiting for. Look, I've done 1,500 podcasts, a ton of podcasts about health and particularly anti-aging. I've had on every anti-aging expert on the planet. And finally, gummy bears to help me with anti-aging. These are the first ever longevity gummies powered by MitoPure, a delicious, easy way to put more energy into your day and to treat yourself. The only clinically proven urolithin A gummy for strength and healthy aging from the inside out. And I've taken it as supplements, but I'm not really a supplement taker kind of person. I'd much rather just take a bunch of gummy bears and eat it like candy. You can't really tell how much it's working, and sometimes you don't know for sure. Are you thinking this? But it does improve energy. Tests showed increases muscle strength by up to 12% after 16 weeks. These gummy bears deliver 6x more urolithin A than a glass of pomegranate juice, which, by the way, I was taking a ton of pomegranates as well. So this is the #1 doctor-recommended urolithin A supplement. It's vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, clean label project certified, NSF content certified, and free of major allergens and artificial ingredients. MitoPure is the only clinically proven form of urolithin A. So if you want to stay strong and energized now and as you age, then you have to try MitoPure gummies. My friends at Timeline are offering 20% off just for my listeners. So head to timeline.com/Altucher to get started. That's timeline.com/Altucher. Your cells will thank you.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire? You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
You open the fridge, there's nothing there. So what's it gonna be? Greasy pizza? Sad drive-thru burgers? Dish by Blue Apron is for nights like that. These are the pre-made meals of your dreams. At least 20 grams of protein, no artificial flavors or colors, no chopping, no cleanup, no guilt. Keep the flavor, ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
And there was another time you said the CIA, not knowing you were undercover, froze one of your bank accounts, took $400,000 from you, which I assume was sort of a bank account related to your legend so that you would seem like this rich drug lord. But they seized it and took $400,000 from it. How did the FBI communicate to the CIA that no, you're one of the good guys?
Yes, so that the funding of the seeding of that account was all drug cartel money that I held for expenses, and I put it into those accounts, covert accounts to bolster, like you said, my legend. And they seized the money because to the not knowing, I exhibited all the traits of a drug lord, and the DEA together with the CIA saw a paycheck, and they seized the money. I was told of the seizure of the money by headquarters in Washington, and I received a phone call from an agent there that told me they were getting ready to indict this guy for money laundering, but I was that guy. And then I told him, listen, I'm allowed to break cover for this one because of who you are, but you need to return the money. And they asked me why, and I said, I'm one and the same as that guy. And they wouldn't believe me. It took another year to get the money back. And they peeled all the layers back and couldn't figure out that this was an FBI operation. A few years later, they called me up after they returned the money, called me up and said, can you sit with us and tell us how you did this? We ran everything on you and your group, all your associates, and you guys came out legit. So we were mafiosi, but we had our legends were real.
That's how you know you're good, if you can fool the CIA.
Yeah, like why would it take a year? Like, well, didn't the head of the FBI could just call the head of the CIA and say, look, this guy's one of ours. Like, that could take seconds. Why did it take a year?
So actually, they had to walk across the street in Washington to one of their offices and say to them, listen, a deputy director went across the street, as I understand, and got us some money back. So why did it take a year? They thought the FBI was pulling one on them, and that it didn't make any sense. They couldn't get into my background and uncover that I was an agent. The way we do these legends is highly classified. We have some help from some really patriotic people that make us look real.
Is it harder now? I mean, I don't know if you keep up with it, but it must be with the internet and all digital information available, like all the public records available on the internet. It must be much harder to go undercover. And even with money laundering, now there's crypto, so you don't go through the normal banking system. It must be almost impossible now to do what you did.
I thought so until a couple of years ago, I was called to as an advisor to do some of these things, and I found out that you actually can see the internet with information and override the block stamp. And I can't say how we do that. So if you go on the internet and Google my name, I'll go back 20, 30 years. So they start vetting you. They're thinking about millions or billions of dollars to gain. They become impatient. Once they peel back a couple of layers of the onion, they're satisfied. And they see that you're legit, they're satisfied and stop. They may continue, but once you're allowed to let them get their proceeds in a limited fashion, they don't believe that you are a cop.
So,
But it takes months and months of preparation. Before I approach a bad guy, I will work on him for 6 months to a year, bumping into him in places and social places and concerts and parties and even offices. They see me and they don't think anything about it once I start engaging them. But I try to make them engage me. So I get on their path and they try to engage me.
I
That's
see.
the way
So you make them think it's their idea to work with you.
right.
And so they're less inclined then to disbelieve your backstory.
Right. Initially, I turned them down when they approached me.
Right.
And I don't want to have anything to do with them because I don't know them. And then they start providing bona fides and identification, the businesses and everything else. So it works out well.
Yeah.
Almost like it's almost like The Art of Seduction, that book.
Right. That's
Where
what it is.
you use similar approaches. And two, that this mirrors the playbook for when a load gets seized. Martin would just say, like, look, I don't even need you guys. Like, you're such a headache. Like, just don't call me anymore. Like, like I got a good thing going and you guys just can't stop messing up. And this is just ruining my vibe. It's always like the playbook always was, I don't need you. I have something bigger and better elsewhere. But if you really want to work with me, you're going to have to, convince me that I'm worth your time, right?
It'll cost them a huge investment.
You're right. And then they would use the money to fund the operation. So they use the cartel's money to investigate the cartels. Like, taxpayers didn't pay anything for these operations. And that's a benefit of doing undercover work, is because the character gets paid and that money goes back in the coffers and sustains the operation further.
So, Ian, as you're writing about this and hearing all of Martin's stories, if you wanted to go undercover, what skills would you have to be good at and learn? What advice would you give to somebody going undercover?
Well,
you learned from Martin.
The first thing is that your legend or your alter ego can't be too far from the truth, right? When Martin went undercover and became Manny, Manny was still Puerto Rican. Manny still had a similar background and personal interest as Martin. It wasn't that you're creating an entirely new character out of whole cloth. The more things that are invented, the easier it is to mess up. So that's number one. And number two is that self-confidence goes a long way. In that, if you go in there, and as Martin would tell me, ignorance is bliss. If that is your mantra, if you go in there thinking nothing's ever going to go wrong and you behave under that premise, chances are nothing will go wrong. But if you get in your own head and you let the circumstances kind of influence you in that way, that's where you can start to trip up. So much of it is convincing yourself that you are the smuggler, that nothing's going to go wrong. And as long as you just keep pushing forward, you're going to succeed. To that end, it's almost more beneficial to convince yourself first rather than convincing the cartel. Because if you can convince yourself, more than likely you're going to do all right.
And would you use that same technique in other areas of life or careers? Like, let's say yourself as an author, how valuable is it to have confidence? Like, what scenarios where Martin's style of confidence being undercover applies to you now?
Well, you have to think about Martin's role undercover as a negotiation of reality. Martin is convincing these people that his version of reality, that he is a smuggler, he's going to do this for you, that it wasn't his fault, is the correct reality. Now, if you think about it in those terms, what is a sales negotiation in business? What is any type of negotiation? It is one side convincing the other that their reality is the correct one, whether it's the value of something, in my case, as a journalist, that the moral imperative of a free press and that the benefit to the public of you sharing your story with me for this article is the better reality than you staying quiet. You know, it's a similar sort of approach here. But it's funny because my first book, which I wrote in 2019, was about magicians and magic, and how when a magician enters a room, they are a object of authority, and people go to them and say, please lie to me, please trick me, and don't tell me how you did it. And in a similar way, that the power embedded within deception in that context really mirrored the power of deception that Martin was able to implant in these operations, because by the time Martin got in deep, the cartel didn't want to believe that he wasn't who he said he was. He had so thoroughly convinced them that his reality was the correct reality. When push came to shove and the cartel was up against the wall, they'd rather blame someone else. Because if they were to admit to themselves or to anyone else that Martin wasn't who he says he was, they were admitting to themselves they didn't have control. And that is where Martin succeeded in the long term. And that is a kind of life lesson that anyone can draw out of this book in kind of a strange sort of tangential way, is that if you wholeheartedly believe that what you know to be true is true, it's much easier to convince other people of the same.
And that's particularly true but stronger in the sense that you're working under greed with all those tools that Ian mentioned. But it's the greed that does this to them, the predetermination to continue to do acts that'll make them richer and richer. So I thought about it all the time, and I saw the greed in their eyes, and I knew that based on that, they were going to be easier or harder to convince them to accept me in their group. And what lesson do I still use that technique in real life? Well, there's no money in real life, and the bad guys always go for the money. In real life, I don't have to be that way because I have a huge support network. And when friends, former FBI people, and also the strongest influence is my wife. I've been with her for over 40 years.
Wow.
I think 45, 46. I don't recall it's been that long. But yeah, she always, whenever I start, even from the Navy days, she always brought me back to with very much kindness. She always brought me back to ground.
That's really special. I mean, look, Martin Suarez, Ian Frisch, authors of Inside the Cartel, a true crime tale of espionage, undercover operations, and a war against billionaire drug lords. And Martin, I also know, you've been dealing with ALS since for almost 8 years. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I really appreciate your service and all the work you've done taking these criminals. I have one last question. When you would meet some of these drug lords, did you sense or could you see that they were evil, or were they somehow good guys in other parts of their life and just evil here? Like, were they different than other people you would meet normally in life?
No, they're the same in that at that level, the people I was meeting and negotiating to the lowest end of money were graduates from major colleges in the U.S. I think about one that went to Brown, another went to Indiana University, where he had a master's in economics. Both of them did, and other major colleges. So it was like dealing with a highly educated person that, in my mind, made them more dangerous than the thugs because they could control. He had knowledge, he had training, and some of them had psychology background. So you have to think about that. Most importantly, you don't project what you think you're projecting if you don't work at it.
Well, thank you again, you guys. And again, the book is Inside the Cartel, a true crime tale of espionage, undercover operations, and a war against billionaire drug lords. Martin and Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, James.
For having us.
This September, CBS hits are streaming free on Pluto TV.
I'm coming in hot.
For this month only, you can watch full seasons of the CBS shows you love. From the courtroom drama of Matlock to the heroics of Fire Country. Go back to where it all began in NCIS Origins, or watch the hilarious hauntings of ghosts, all for free. Full seasons of the CBS shows you love. This month only on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.